Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eylon Levy, an Israeli government spokesman. Thank you for joining us. First, a brief update, then I will take your questions. Since declaring war on Israel with the October 7th massacre, Hamas has fired over 10,000 rockets at Israel. On Friday night, Israeli forces located the cell that fired that evening barrage at the greater Tel Aviv area and eliminated the terrorists within the hour. Over 1,200 Israelis were killed in the massacre, and over 7,667 Israelis have been injured since the war began. These numbers are, of course, expected to change. The IDF has notified the families of 383 soldiers that their loved ones fell in battle, as well as 59 members of the police force. The hostage count in Gaza is now around 240, including nationals of 26 different countries. It is day 44 that our nearly 240 hostages are in Hamas captivity, and as always, I want to draw attention to one of them. This is Mika Engel. On October 7th, Hamas abducted Mika from her home in Kibbutz Nir Oz, along with her 11-year-old sister Yuval, her mother Karina, and father Ronen. An entire family kidnapped. After communications went dark on that awful day, Mika's uncle was looking at his brother's Facebook when he saw a news story, a new post, a video of a Hamas terrorist smiling into the camera, speaking in Arabic. Mika and her family's phones were later traced and located in the Gaza Strip. Prior to her abduction, Mika was in the middle of a year-long voluntary service program with mentally disabled children. The children in her care are distressed and miss her greatly. Mika's mother, Karina, recently won a lengthy battle with cancer, and the family was optimistic about better days ahead. An entire family held incommunicado by the terrorists who massacred their way through their kibbutz. We repeat our demand for the international community to apply all pressure on Hamas and its supporters to release all the hostages immediately and unconditionally. Several important operational updates from over the weekend as Israel continues to dismantle the Hamas terror state. Yesterday, the IDF expanded activities in the Gaza Strip, operating in the Zaytun and Jabalia areas to clear out and eliminate terrorists and strike their infrastructure above and below ground. Forces also killed the terrorists who unleashed that barrage of rockets on Friday night, as I said. Over the weekend, the paratroopers brigade raided the residences of senior Hamas terrorist leaders. During operations in the Sheikh Ijlin and Rimal areas, the troops located approximately 35 tunnel shafts and a large weapons cache and eliminated terrorists. They also operated in a Hamas intelligence base and located ammunition depots and 7 rocket launchers. In the hospital above the Shifa terror complex, IDF forces have operated in the tunnel shaft that was exposed, and further visual documentation will be released shortly. We note also that shocking interview on France 24 with a British doctor who used to work at Shifa, who said that he was not allowed to go near the basement or else would be shot, and that he understood that Hamas was indeed operating there. And if you haven't seen that video, send us a message and we will direct you to it. Now, a humanitarian update from that hospital above the Shifa terror complex. During operations to uncover terror infrastructure, Kogat transferred over 6,000 litres of water and over 2,300 kilos of food, including fish, canned food, bread, spreads and dates to patients there. I saw the World Health Organization reporting that at the same time there were around 316 patients and staff still at the hospital, so that would mean the Israeli army delivered over 7 kilos of food and nearly 20 litres of water per person. Additionally, the IDF acceded to a request from the hospital management to open a secure passage south for any civilians wishing to evacuate. I'll say something about the evacuation of the hospital. We welcome the World Health Organization finally agreeing to facilitate an evacuation from the Shifa hospital 37 days after Israel started urging an evacuation of northern Gaza, where Hamas has embedded itself under civilian infrastructure. It is tragic and outrageous that the World Health Organization resisted Israel's calls for an evacuation before the start of the ground operation and is now calling on Israel to facilitate that evacuation under fire in an active war zone. We hold it complicit with Hamas's human shield strategy. We hold it complicit with any loss of life from its gross negligence. And we note that despite completing a risk assessment about the Shifa hospital, that assessment still covers up for Hamas's abuse of the hospital, still says nothing about the hostages, and the World Health Organization is yet to condemn, astonishingly, Hamas's illegal exploitation of hospitals as human shields, jeopardizing their protected status. Moving on to some diplomatic updates. The Prime Minister has reaffirmed our great appreciation for the United States under the leadership of our friend President Joe Biden. Israel and the United States see eye to eye about our common interests. Washington's diplomatic, moral, material and military support for our campaign to end Hamas is ongoing and unwavering. In fact, we were grateful to see just this morning the President writing in the Washington Post about the importance of denying Hamas the ability to carry out pure, unadulterated evil, as he called it, and reminding people of the atrocities of October 7th. The President made clear Hamas's goal is to wipe out the democratic state of Israel, wipe it off the map, and collapse regional security. And the United States stands firmly with the Israeli people as we defend ourselves against the aggression of Hamas, which is openly vowing to repeat the October 7th atrocities. The President was also unequivocally clear Gaza must never again be used as a platform for terrorism. As for the day after Hamas, which we emphasize is not in the immediate offing, unfortunately, the Prime Minister said last night, we will not agree to the introduction of any element that supports terrorism, pays terrorists and their families, and educates their children to murder Jews and eliminate the state of Israel. I'll add the Palestinian Authority has not only failed to condemn the October 7th massacre, it is now actively spreading Holocaust denial-style lies, covering up for Hamas's atrocities, and it's unsurprising that the regime headed by a man with a doctorate in Holocaust denial, which somehow cannot find the humanity to condemn the October 7th massacre, is now going full 9/11 truther on the facts of that massacre. After Hamas, the Gaza Strip must be not only demilitarized but de-radicalized. And we call on the international community to ensure that the next generation of Palestinian children not be raised on the same diet of indoctrination and jihad as they were under Hamas rule, including through UNRWA. You know, Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip in 2005. Our youngest soldiers in the Strip right now were born after Israel gave the Palestinians the keys to the Gaza Strip. And the youngest Hamas October 7th terrorists who invaded the kibbutzim were born after their parents spectacularly squandered that opportunity for a future of peace following Israel's withdrawal. That cannot and will not be allowed to happen again. As for recent reports about the Houthis' attack on a ship in the Red Sea, we strongly condemn the Iranian attack against an international ship. That ship, owned by a British company and operated by a Japanese company, was hijacked on an Iranian whim by the Houthi militia in Yemen. On board the ship are 25 crew members of different nationalities, including Ukrainians, Bulgarians, Filipinos, and Mexicans. No Israelis were present on the ship. This is another act of Iranian terrorism, which marks a leap forward in Iran's aggression against the citizens of the free world and creates and bears with it serious international implications regarding the security of global shipping lanes. That's all for today's update. We'll now take your questions. If you'd like to type questions in a chat or put your hands up, we'll see how many we can take. Jim Williams, it's time for your daily question. Let's hear it. Good afternoon. First of all, our position remains unchanged in the face of Hezbollah aggression. We are warning Hezbollah that if it decides to enter a full-scale war, it will be making the mistake of a lifetime, that fire will be met with stronger fire, that we do not want to fight on two fronts at the same time. But if forced to do so, we are ready to do so with a historic call-up of reserves, and we're ready to win. And in that context, of course, we welcome the very powerful American force projection in the region in a message to anyone thinking of escalating this conflict further. In a word, if you're thinking of messing with Israel, don't. Next question, please. We have a question from Coach Winehouse. 1 second. Jim, if you could just put yourself on mute, please. Sure. A question from Coach Winehouse about the provision of aid of fuel to the Gaza Strip. I hope I'm reading this correctly. My eyesight isn't as good as it should be. The War Cabinet agreed to the recommendation of the Shin Bet and the IDF to accede to a request from the American administration to allow 2 tankers of fuel a day into the Gaza Strip in order to supply the sewage and water facilities there. We're doing this because we do not want to see the outbreak of disease inside the Gaza Strip. It's very important for us, both for the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and also the implications for the region more widely, that we not see any outbreak of epidemics, and therefore it's important that the aid be allowed to go to that infrastructure. We would note, however, we are firmly insistent the international community's goodwill must not be abused by Hamas in order to rearm and refuel and regroup, as it has stolen aid from the international community before. We note, of course, on the 16th of October, when Hamas stole 24,000 litres of fuel from UNRWA, which UNRWA admitted in a tweet before deleting it under fire. We know that Hamas has also stolen fuel from hospitals as well. We know it's been leaching it from the hospitals and, of course, prevented the Shifa hospital from receiving the 300 litres of fuel that Israel delivered just the other week. So we're allowing this fuel in order to prevent the outbreak of epidemics, but we are, of course, watching very closely so that Hamas not abuse this in order to refuel its war machine. That is a very clear red line as far as we're concerned. Next question, please. We have a question about the evacuation of Shifa's neonatal ward. That is an operational question. I would refer you to the IDF spokesperson's unit for that. We have a question just now about the video that has only just begun to do the rounds of Hamas seemingly firing RPGs at the Rantisi Children's Hospital. If you haven't seen this, this is a video that Hamas put out just today. Hamas continues to document its own war crimes like it did on October 7th with the GoPro cameras that documented its atrocities. And now we have Hamas openly boasting about directing RPGs at the Rantisi Hospital. We're, of course, looking into this, and I hope we'll be able to provide further context. JNS, David Isaac, please. Sure. We read with interest the president's very important column in the Washington Post. The president was adamant in that column that Hamas's control of the Gaza Strip must end, and that whatever comes after must not allow Gaza or the West Bank to be platforms for terrorism. That is entirely consistent with our declared war aims for the demilitarization, de-radicalization, and sustainable reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. We see eye to eye on that. And I would note the president said that Gaza and the West Bank should be reunited ultimately under a revitalized Palestinian Authority. And I don't think that word was there by accident. Our position is that as it stands, an entity that pays financial incentives to terrorists to perpetrate attacks against Israel with the so-called pay-for-say scheme is not consistent with that goal of making sure that Gaza does not export terrorism. Our partners, whoever is involved in rebuilding the Gaza Strip after Hamas, must fight terrorism. It cannot be an entity that funds terrorism. As for the immediate future after Hamas, since that is looking a little bit further ahead, the president spoke in his column of interim security measures and a reconstruction mechanism to sustainably meet Gaza's long-term needs, and that will make sure that no terrorist threats emanate from Gaza or the West Bank ever again. We note the president in that very important column said that if the world can agree on those steps, on making sure that the Gaza Strip is never again used as a base for terrorism, and the West Bank either, then we can begin to imagine a different future. And of course, we too also hope for a different, more peaceful future. And until then, we'll continue working together with the United States, shoulder to shoulder, eye to eye, in preventing any further escalation or expansion of this conflict. Okay, that's all we have time for today, everyone. Thank you very much, and keep updated in the WhatsApp group, and email will update you about tomorrow's daily briefing. Everyone keep safe. Thank you very much.